evening. Welcome to the special meeting of the Putnam County Legislature, called by the clerk at the request of the chairman. Tonight is August 20th, 2024. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislative Council Ferriola, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. I call on Legislator Sage for the legislative prayer.
We seek blessings on the tasks before us. Bless our efforts with clear insight, our deliberations with wisdom, our work with clarity and accuracy, and our decisions with impartiality.
Amen. Roll call, please.
District 1, Legislator Montgomery.
Here.
District 2, Legislator Goldman.
Present.
District 3, Legislator Adrizio. District 4, Legislator Nasarino.
Present.
District 5, Legislator Elmer.
Here.
District 7, Legislator Castellano.
Present.
District 8, Legislator Sage.
Present.
District 9, Legislator Crowley.
Present.
District 6, Chairman.
Present. Item number 4 is a reconsideration for approval of inclusion of parcels in Putnam County Agricultural District. This was tabled at the full meeting on August 6, 2024. Discussion. Legislator Crowley.
I was hoping to see some sort of, have some sort of communication, see some sort of communication on an updated resolution. We've put forth several charter changes this week and the last week. We were able to get those done, and there's been no communication about even adjusting this this resolution that we had. So it's a little bothersome to me to see that there was nothing.
Legislator Goldman.
Thank you, Chairman. I've spoken to the supervisor of Putnam Valley and the town board, and they're in support of adding the big red barn farm parcel from Putnam Valley into the agricultural district this year. The other day, the members of this legislature received a letter from Putnam, the supervisor of Putnam Valley, and Richard Quinata, the code enforcement officer of Putnam Valley, in support of putting the big red barn farm in the agricultural district. Because of this, I'm making a motion to amend this and to add the big red barn farm tax map 72.16-1-1, which is 67.05 acres to the agricultural district. I support this, and I hope my colleagues here will also support this. Thank you.
Second.
I think it's already part of the resolution, sorry to interrupt.
Let the Legislative Council weigh in. Your motion is to include
To separate out, to amend the
You say
resolution, to add, to have the big red barn farm
Included,
included.
right. As currently drafted, the resolution declines to include any of the parcels. So Legislator Goldman is using the correct procedure of making a motion to include a parcel. So right now, that's the motion for consideration, is to amend to add big red barn.
Correct.
So we have a second. Discussion. Legislator Elder.
The law, New York State law, is very clear. You must have 10 horses and $10,000 of revenue. There are not 10 horses, and no receipts for revenue have been provided, only projections. So this parcel absolutely does not qualify. Also, to the best of my knowledge, Putnam Valley, the town of Putnam Valley, was never approached with a request for any variances or special use permits, which should have been the first step in this process.
Legislator Goldman.
As you're aware, you received a letter from the supervisor of Putnam Valley and the person who would give out violations, the code enforcer, basically saying that they support putting this into the agricultural district.
Legislator Crowley.
As the chair of physical services, with any questions, and one of them being about the receipts, did you ever request the receipts for revenue? Because it wasn't listed, maybe it's just something the applicant didn't know that they needed to provide?
Not directly, if I may, not directly, and that's not my requirement. Just like you know, it's illegal to rob a bank. No one here, I'm pretty sure no one knows what the actual code for bank robbery is. This business of interpretation is not correct. It is very clear. You must have, per Ag and Markets Law 239, 10 horses. The simple fact that the applicant has 3 horses is enough to deny inclusion. In addition, a must, and that is the term must, the soils of this property also disqualify it. Any of the items in Putnam County Resolution 139, if you do not comply with any of them, that is enough to decline the application.
If I,
We're going to go around.
okay, so
Go ahead. Legislator Montgomery.
I understand what Legislator Elner is saying, but if we read the recommendation, I'm going to base my vote on, number 1, the recommendation of the Ag Board, and more importantly, the recommendation of the town supervisor, the town board, and the code enforcement officer, citing that the application use is consistent with the previous owner and the neighboring parcels, and having demonstrated an adequate boarding capacity of 10 horses. I don't know why the state made that law, probably because people were boarding horses without the proper capacity. This parcel has the capacity for 10 horses. She just doesn't have the horses yet. So that's what I'm going to base my vote on. Let the state come and talk to us.
Legislator Nasarino.
The revenue that's required is stipulated, and the applicant should have been aware of that. And I think it's ironic that we would negate from the law based on assumption and speculation as to what, why, and what will be.
Legislator Crowley.
I just lost my train of thought, I apologize. Come back to me in a moment.
I'd like to respond, if I may.
Let's go around and let
Okay.
everybody have a shot at talking. This is a full meeting.
Well, it's relevant, though. It's just,
Did you,
Just come back to me, I'm sorry.
Legislator Castellano?
No, I just wanted to state that it appears that, although the town wants to approve this, there is a remedy with the town, with the special district, with the zoning board. If the town wants to handle that, it should be handled at the town level and not at the Ag Board, in my opinion. And there is state law that says we shouldn't do this as well.
Legislator Sage.
I agree with Legislator Castellano. If you go to the Ag and Markets website, they actually have guidelines for review of local zoning and planning laws. So the towns can go to the Ag and Markets and review their local zoning and planning laws. And I think that's a really great thing about our discussion here tonight, is that we can remedy this situation going forward by changing our resolution, which I thought we were going to do tonight. I agree with Legislator Crowley about that, to be able to include some of these properties into the Ag District. However, I personally am not willing to skirt around our laws as we see them at this point. I can't go back and change what we've done.
but
But
they're
with
not
it in front of
laws.
me,
It's
excuse
not a
me.
law.
Please.
So
It's not a law.
the fact that we know that this resolution is before us, that we have to abide by, and the state law we have to abide by. So I'm all in favor of agriculture, and I would really look forward to having each of these properties in our Ag Board. But we have to abide by our Ag and Markets law. And the district was designed to form districts to counteract local government infringing on other farming operations. Its intent is to preserve farming and farmland in New York State, which we're all in favor of, I believe. In order to receive these benefits, you have to meet the eligibility requirements dictated by the Ag and Markets Law and the Putnam County resolutions. We can't just pick and choose. The state law cannot be overlooked the same way as Putnam County's laws cannot be overlooked. The annual gross sales of agricultural products must be $10,000 or more for the preceding 2 years. And if an agricultural enterprise is less than 7 acres, it may qualify as average gross sales for more than $50,000. At least 7 acres of land supports the commercial horse boarding operation. The operation boards at least 10 horses regardless of ownership. There's many different, there's several eligibility requirements because they receive benefits from the state. They receive benefits for taxes. They receive less zoning requirements. So we really have to abide by the state law so that they can be eligible.
Legislator Crowley.
Sorry, so I did speak to Neil Tolman, and I was under the understanding that he told me after, if any of these inclusions get put forth, he has to submit a secret. And I think moving forward, it would be important that these applicants do go ahead and have to do that, so when they come to the Ag Board, we have a lot of the answers for us already provided, and it would negate this process that we're going through right now. Because if Neil has to do it anyway at the end, and he can't fill it out because he doesn't have a soil and water, plan or different things.
Site plan.
Or site plan, that would help in the future. Just talking for discussion purposes in this resolution.
Anyone else? Legislator Montgomery.
For this particular applicant, they wouldn't need a site plan because the adequate boarding capacity of 10 horses, it's evident that it's already there. It was an operating boarding facility that could accommodate 10 horses. I'd like to point out the difference between a resolution and a law. Our county resolution is just that, it's a resolution. A resolution is a sentiment, it's an intent, it's not a law. I didn't pass that resolution, and I don't intend to enforce it here. That's not gonna be the basis for my vote tonight. My basis is going to really be the input from town government, being that I spent so much time in town government, and I know the consequences and the implications of what these projects can do to a town, can do to a neighborhood. So, while we have these state and county restrictions, I still will defer to a town. We have a lot of applications here before us that have cited different uses that they want to use their farm for, agritourism. It doesn't necessarily mean that we should approve it for the agritourism and the uses that they're doing, because, we have other businesses that are trying to have events and parties too, and they have to meet a certain standard in code and health department issues. Our camps have to meet a certain standard and regulations and codes, and so those are vague things that are coming into this that have really not much to do with agriculture, so that's how I'm going to be basing my vote. Just wanted to clarify that. I'll wait.
Make one more comment?
Sure.
I just wanted to point out that we're not saying no to these businesses or their operations. Each applicant can continue doing what they're doing based on. We're not saying no. We're just saying, come back. Let's tweak this resolution, and if they're not being approved, they're outside of this New York State law, they can't be approved anyway. But let's give them the opportunity to be included next time, and meanwhile, they can still continue with their operations.
So
I don't see, there's no harm, no foul at this point.
Legislator Nasarino, and then we're going to call it.
I agree with Legislator Sage. I was the deciding vote to table, but this has been a very complicated process this year. I've sat for a couple of years on the Ag Board, I sat on the Soil and Water Board, I sat on the Zoning Board in my hometown. For some reason, this has been very complicated by process and procedure. That being said, we need to follow process and procedure. We need to follow our resolution, and we need to follow state law. It doesn't impede the operations of any farm, but I did make the overture to ask Legislator Elner to put this on for discussion in September so that we could look at resolution 139 and also figure out ways suggested by Legislator Crowley, and also perhaps notifying some of the neighbors within, like you had said, 500 feet, if there's an operation that would have any effect in some of these farms and operations, because they're not just all quiet operations anymore. One of the applicants is planning on having events that might have a very negative adverse effect on the neighborhood, and they have not been apprised that this operation would be approved within a residential area. So I think this is a wake-up call for us, and I think moving forward that there will be a lot of discussion and ways to improve efficiencies.
Okay. To be fair to the Ag Board, the resolution didn't come forward while they were voting. Up until the time they voted, I don't think they were aware of the resolution from 2007, to be fair to them. They made their recommendations without that knowledge. I'm going to speak now. Moving forward, I am in favor of changing some of that resolution, amending that resolution. As Legislator Nasarino, I've mentioned to some of you that I think that at very least, if someone applies to go into the Ag District, most towns have a 500-foot notification radius. And I think that we should notify the neighbors, especially if it's occurring in a residential neighborhood. Neighbors should have an opportunity to speak upon what's happening in their neighborhood. As Legislator Nasarino said, what we do or don't do tonight will not impede the legal operation of any of the farms going forward. And with that, I'm going to call for a roll call vote.
Can I
No,
separate?
I'm going to call the question. We're going to go. Everybody's had a chance to speak at least twice.
I'm not speaking, I'd like to divide the question.
We have a motion.
We have a
It's a
motion.
motion for one parcel.
Roll call vote, please.
Legislator Adnesio. Legislator Castellano.
No.
Legislator Crowley.
Yes.
Legislator Elmer.
No.
Legislator Goulden.
Yes.
Legislator Montgomery.
Yes?
Legislator Nasarino.
No,
Legislator Sage.
No.
Chairman Yaki.
No.
Motion fails.
Any further discussion?
I'd like to suggest that we divide the question.
You'd like to suggest it, or would you like to do it?
We'd like to do it, but I can't do it. I'm not the chairperson. Can we divide the question?
Through the chair, at this point, I don't think there is a question to divide, because the only motion that was made was to include a parcel, which failed. So now we're left with the original resolution, which states that the legislature declines to include any parcels. So unless somebody moves to add additional parcels, there's nothing to divide.
I'd like to make a motion to add sorry, I can't find the lot number. Town of Phillipstown, Whipple Farm, 250 Old Stone Road, Pine View Farm.
Mr. Chair, isn't that one of the parcels under consideration for the resolution?
They're all,
I think you can identify it by saying Pine View Farm without the tax map numbers. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion.
again, this was voted on by the Ag Board 9-2. It seemed to be the same two that voted against all of these. The town supervisor and the town board are in favor of this. This, ironically, I believe, was a farm for hundreds of years, and they're just restoring it back to its original enterprise. I don't know if you're familiar with the castle above Route 90 in Garrison, and all the property below it was farming property. And this is just adding parcels to an existing agricultural enterprise.
Any other discussion? Legislator Elner.
There are 4 parcels. 3 of the parcels have 0% of soil groups 1 through 6. In 2007, the county derived from New York State Ag and Markets law a system to rate the soils. New York State Ag and Markets law says that the parcels must have predominantly prime agricultural soils. That has been determined to be soil groups 1 through 6. 3 of these parcels have 0%. The 4th parcel has 46%. Therefore, this application is defective. This is not open to interpretation. That's where we're getting the problem. The Ag Board did not get this right. The Ag Board does not make policy for the county. The Ag Board is supposed to provide expert advice. The Ag Board is only supposed to meet when there are applications before them. And Resolution 139 absolutely was provided to the Ag Board. It indicates it in minutes of meetings. So the Ag Board was fully aware of County Resolution 139 as well as Farm and Markets Law, Ag and Farm Markets Law 239.
Legislator Crowley.
So the resolution, which was developed in 07, at that time, equine was not even included in that resolution. It was added later therein.
I beg to disagree. The equine is New York State law, Ag and Markets Law.
We didn't adopt it in until after, okay, because they weren't allowed in, that's in the minutes too, you can read back. It wasn't adopted in until after. So back then when that happened, the soil content should have been looked at and taken into consideration when running a farm for animals. The soil content is not going to affect the animals that are rotating and herding on the properties. I don't find it to be a reason to not be able to be included. It seems ridiculous, and looking at the actual viable farmland in Putnam County, which I understand this was meant to preserve, it just doesn't make sense. Actually, by rotating the animals, it makes the soil more protein rich and hardy. So I have an issue with us going off of, again, an antiquated resolution where we've had 2 weeks to come up with charter changes and everything else, but we couldn't find the time to look at this and talk about it and come up with any sort of meaningful changes that would be pertinent to today's day and age.
Legislator Sage.
I would agree with Legislator Crowley, and that just makes the argument that we really have to revisit this resolution before going further to make our ag districts better. Maybe we'll have more districts added, but the way it stands now, today, I don't see how we can go forward. We have to go through the laws and the resolutions that we have on the books today. And I also just want to reiterate that each of these farms can continue with their operations. The reason you apply for an ag district is to receive the benefits of an ag district. And I'll just read some of those at this time. Ag districts allow reduced property tax bills for land and agricultural production by limiting the property tax assessment of such land to to its prescribed agricultural assessment value. Owners whose land satisfies the eligibility requirements may apply for an agricultural assessment. So agricultural districts provide the framework to limit unreasonable local regulation on farm practices, modify public agencies' ability to acquire farmland through eminent domain, modify the right to advance public funds to construct facilities that encourage development. They require state agencies to modify administrative and regulations and procedures to encourage continuing farm businesses. And ag districts provide right to farm provisions for protection from private nuisance suits for the land in agricultural district and parcels receiving agricultural assessments outside districts. So that just begs the question again, to revisit the resolution. Maybe we do need to talk to contiguous landowners if there is some type of a perceived or real nuisance in the areas. They should be notified. So I agree with Legislator Crowley. We have to tweak this resolution. We have to make our ag districts better. And we can't go back. I mean, we can't say we should have done this, we should have done that. Well, now we have it in front of us and we can't.
Legislator Montgomery.
I think if this is going the way I think it's going to go, I think we will have to go back. We'll have to go back and examine every parcel that we've approved in the past that doesn't meet that, not by law, by resolution, which is just a sentiment, soil requirement. So we have to go back and examine all those parcels, and I would really like us to go back and examine all of the resolutions that we don't implement. You know, there's one that keeps coming up at every meeting, the police policy review resolution that our legislative council did point out to me a couple of months ago. It's a sentiment. It is something that we kind of hope will do. It's not law. So I just would like to let you know what you're about to deny here in this application based on the soil quality, that, you know, they're not even going to be planting anything here. It's for a farm operation, a cow operation, for branding critically endangered, I'm sorry I can't read the writing, Randall lineback cows, for continuity of this critical endangered cow. So they're bringing these critically endangered cows to these 4 parcels amounting in how many acres? Well, it's the total number of acres farmed is 96 acres, or the total number of acres farmed.
37.9.
If you drive that patch of 90, you'll see how beautiful that area is. So again, we're stuck on this resolution passed in 2007. I'd like to maybe, as a fun Friday night project, bring up all the resolutions that I've observed over the years that this legislature has not enforced.
Legislator Nasarino.
First of all, it's not a matter of enforcement. We've been made aware of this, and this has come to light. So the fact that we know is the fact that we must adhere. So we're not going backwards. This has been brought to our attention, it's been brought to the Ag Board's attention, and we must comply. I just have a question for Legislator Olner. Based on what you just said, I'm not so clear that the resolution did not include certain things, but state law does. Is that, so state law supersedes any
yes.
resolution in place. So whether or not it's included in a resolution is not necessarily the case.
Through the chair. State law requires predominantly prime agricultural soils.
Right.
The resolution gave a mechanism to easily determine what those soils are.
But the state law supersedes any resolution, whether or not certain components were
Correct.
included or excluded from that resolution.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Like the state mask mandate that we didn't follow. Remember that
Roll
one?
call vote, please.
Legislator Adrizio. Legislator Castellano.
No.
Legislator Crowley.
Yes.
Legislator Elmer.
No.
Legislator Goulden.
Yes.
Legislator Montgomery.
Yes.
Legislator Nasarino.
No.
Legislator Sage.
No.
Chairman Knappes.
No.
Motion passed.
Yes.
I'd just like to put on the record that equine was added to the state ag district in 2011, so it was after our resolution in 2007, so it was never amended even then. So it's really very unfair that we never in 2011 looked at it.
Through the chair, I
I'm not
understand that we
done.
have to correct
Okay.
some
I'm
of...
not done speaking.
I-
I have the
oh.
floor, please, I'm
Well,
sorry.
go ahead, I thought you were.
So I really think that it should have been addressed back then, and it wasn't, and it seems that it was overlooked by the ag board then, and whoever was sitting on it then really should have brought it up, and now it's affecting the people that are sitting here today, and that's unfair.
Through the chair.
Let me say
Okay.
something. Number one, a lot of things were overlooked. This is the eighth year that I'm here about including properties into the ag district. This was never brought to my attention before, and shame on whoever was leading the charge back then or was supposed to be in charge. I didn't know about this. Okay, it's not an obscure law, it's what we're basing the whole ag district on. These are the criteria. You were our, Legislator Crowley, were our representative on that board. To come here tonight and make all these complaints after the fact is a little
I voted in favor of it.
unnerving. But none of what you said tonight was said prior to tonight. Legislator Nasarino, I'll let you have the last word.
Well, whether or not it was included or whenever it came to light, we understand, we recognize, and this is a meaningful discussion because we do recognize that things we really need to move forward in a different direction and really analyze and look at all the restrictions and reconsider some of the things that we have not yet considered or take into account some of the things that we now have knowledge of. But that being said, state law supersedes anything, whether or not it was 2007 or 2011, it doesn't matter. The state is specific, and it's black and white, there's no gray.
Can I have one more comment,
Yes.
please? I can see how this is going, so I just want to make this statement that, again, that's been stated before. And I don't think the public understands this from the emails and the letters that we got on the legislature. I appreciate all of the public input, but it was clear to me from those letters that the public probably thinks that these folks are not going to be able to farm anymore, and that's not the case. Everybody can continue on with their businesses. Hopefully you'll comply with town code, town laws, and do best business practices and preserve the character of your town and your neighbors. And we can obviously revisit this again, but this is not going to prevent anybody from farming, and I think that's a very important point to make, because I don't think the public really understands that. Everybody can still farm.
Yes.
My concerns were, just to be clear, I did bring many concerns to both you and Legislator Elner about how the ag board was being operated. And there was a year-and-a-half long conversations, even with legislative council, about the way things were going and that certain rules weren't being followed and things were not going the right way. So that was made apparent, and it's on the record. So that's untrue to say that I was the ag board liaison and I didn't come to anybody for support or help to say, jump in and let me know, because I did. You even sat in on one of the meetings, and
I was there, and
yes,
there was a lot of confusion.
right, there was confusion, and these rules were not stated, stipulated, and brought to anybody's attention in that room, saying the soil and water wasn't said, you are not a viable candidate because you don't meet this criteria. That was never said.
Through the chair, was that brought to committee? Because I don't recall having that conversation.
I had that.
Well,
no,
that's not
no.
on record.
Also, it was said, it was brought actually, because we said here that it was, when Neil Tillman was here, and I believe, Greg, you were chairing the meeting, Mr. Tillman did say he did this soil and water after they were brought in, correct? We didn't have it at the meeting when we voted.
I disagree. Those are by satellite photos, they were present, it was USDA, all the parcels were graded.
I'm going to jump in, I'm going to make a correction. Neil Tolman did say that he did not have that criteria, the 50% at the
Thank you.
meeting. That did come up after the meeting. The advisory board did not
Maybe you
have
didn't
that.
have it present, but there were discussions in minutes where it was brought forth,
Okay.
minutes of the Ag Board.
That wasn't my understanding.
It
So
wasn't mine.
apologize. You just
For
called
what?
her, you just called her out, and how dare she be the liaison to the Ag Board? We're all responsible for
What
this.
she's saying tonight is not something that was brought up prior to now.
Yeah, but
That's a
we're-
fact.
we're all-
I'm just
I asked for
saying
help,
the
and I
fact.
asked
We are all
for-
responsible.
for
You
more
just stated
efficient
you've been here for 8
meetings.
years. Some of us
We'll
have been
have
here
more.
for 12 years. I'm
At
sorry,
this
we're
point-
all responsible for this.
At this
So
point, we have-
at this point, we'll correct it.
We have,
To the chair, I think that Legislator Crowley should have brought this to committee, and we could have maybe amended and discussed some of the things that were troublesome. As a liaison, that's what you're supposed to do.
Why didn't you when you were there for 12 years?
It
Come on.
didn't
Or
come
you
up.
for 8
Come on.
years?
It didn't come up.
At
but
this
she was-
time,
You
I'm
should
gonna
know
call,
it.
I'm
You should
gonna
know
call
what it
the
is.
question. We
You're
have,
the liaison.
we
You
have,
should
we have a
know.
resolution,
I brought
I'd
it
like
to
a,
council, the chairman, and chairman of the
I'd like,
committee.
I'd
Go
like,
to committee.
I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Legislator Adnesio. Legislator Castellano.
Yes.
Legislator Crowley.
Yes.
Legislator Elmer.
Yes.
Legislator Blumer.
Yes.
Legislator Montgomery.
We have to be clear on what we're voting. We're voting to deny all of these
Oh,
assets.
wait,
Yeah, that-
On the table.
I thought we were voting on.
It's not, it wasn't
on-
clear.
I
Let's,
thought we were voting on, I'm sorry, George Whipple's property, I apologize.
Well,
we're voting on the entire
But we
res,
voted
Oh,
on
I
it.
apologize.
we're voting, yep.
All right, I'll start it. Legislator Adnesio.
Can we clarify what we're
It's
voting
the
on?
Voting on the
resolution
Okay. Thank you. So the public understands too.
Legislator Castellano.
Yes.
Legislator Crowley.
No.
Legislator Elmer.
Yes.
Legislator Blumer.
no.
Legislator Montgomery.
No.
Legislator Nasarino.
Yes.
Legislator Sage.
Yes.
Chairman Yasi.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Item number 5 is the approval, lead agency for the agricultural district.
If you say we need
Yeah,
it
I
now.
was gonna say, we don't need it now. So we'll move to item number 6, which is adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? All in favor?